really long time. So again, we're going to give just a couple more seconds, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. How about you, John? Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, I am so excited. So guys, just let me take a moment and introduce to you Mr. John Kairouz. And I practiced his name before we started because I wanted to make sure that I said it right. So let me tell you a little bit about John. John is a human capital development consultant. Wow, big words, huh? He's also one of our coach trainers here at Coach Transformation Academy, which is so awesome as well. John has also done research. His research has been in neuroscience as well as neuropsychology as an application in human development. Now, his coaching title is a Neuro Integrative Coach. Now, let me add something else. John is also a master trainer. He has coached in organizations for over 17 years. He's done extensive research in human behavior within organizations. And also, he has done a TED Talk called My Unlikely Friend. So without further ado, I'm going to turn everything over to John. Oh, I forgot one very, very important thing about John. Not only is he a trainer, a consultant, a researcher, he is also my friend. So I am very, very honored to be able to introduce to you my friend, John. Over to you, John.
Brenda, I need you to do this kind of intro, please, when I'm going to get married someday, just before my marriage.
I'll be there for you.
It's like, John, I thank you. Really, really appreciate it. It gives me great honor to be able to serve everybody here today. Brenda, you are a super dear friend of mine, and it's always a pleasure to do anything with you. I've noticed that I think there's some feedback. Let me just double check. Can I ask everybody, just out of courtesy for everyone, to mute your mics, and we'll unmute when we're going to talk. It's really an honor and a privilege to serve you all today, hopefully. And hopefully we will be able to add tremendous value in this 50, 60-minute session that we're going to spend together. In order to get things kind of moving, because I want to hear a lot more from you than it be focused mostly on us doing the talking. So can I invite you to go to www.menti.com. You can see in the chat, I've already put the web address. You can use anything you want. You can use an extra phone, you can use your pad, iPad, Samsung tablet, whatever it is, or you can use an extra browser on your computer to log in, and you just plug in the code 15877821. And at the bottom, if you can just give me hearts, thumbs up, or a cat, if you're a cat person, and that will just let me know how many people are logged in so we can have a little bit of a chit chat and kind of get into the depth of the topic itself. So I hope that's okay for everybody and it won't be too much trouble. It just allows us to ensure that you can participate and share thoughts equally. So it's not just about me doing the talking. And I see a lot of friends here. Dr. Larry, how are you? Davis, nice to see you. And everybody else, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining today. It's really an honor. All right, so I see 4 thumbs up, waiting for the rest of you. I think we are roughly 44 people, so I hope at least we'll get around 20 people logged in on Menti so we can get some nice responses from you. So again, you can use the chat. In the chat, there's the link. If you try to search it, it's going to take you to the service area. Not highly recommended. The code, I'm so sorry, I wrote that code. It's my mistake. So it's 15877821. I deleted 1 digit by accident. And you can see it at the top of the screen here, because I'm sharing the screen, am I not? Yes. Is that right? You can give me a thumbs up, just let me know. All right, awesome. Okay, well, let's get it. Well, look at you people, look at that. The thumbs up are just coming in. All right, so I've been blessed to have the opportunity to work with CTA for quite some time now and work with incredible people like Franda and Soham and Dr. Harris and the entire team. And we're always working hard to find new ways to improve the way we deliver coaching in order to serve the coachees in the best way possible. So the objective of today's talk is to talk about state management. And in order for it to be an effective conversation, I'd like to invite you into the conversation itself by first asking you where you logged in from. So that way you can get kind of used to, the system itself. Yes, the right code makes all the difference. It definitely does. Abu Dhabi, Albany, Dubai. Hello, NY. Johannesburg, Egypt, Kuwait, Wassenaar. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can someone unmute and tell me how to say it?
Wassenaar.
Wassenaar. Also, oh wow. Okay, so I'm guessing it's Northern Europe, right?
Yeah, it's Netherlands.
Netherlands. There you go. Yes. When you say Wassenaar, I just got it. I was like, all right, Vikings. Here we go. Awesome. Thank you so much. Lovely to have you over. Jakarta, Cape Town, Al Ain, Bahrain, Barcelona, Beirut. So cool to see so many different people from many different areas of the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, Lansing, Atlanta, Romania, Bangalore, Ukraine, Riyadh, Dubai, Indiana, Pakistan, Johannesburg. Guys, thank you so much. Such an honor and a privilege to have you all logged on. So let's get straight to it. All right. What is a state? If you don't mind me asking, what is a state? When we talk about state management and we talk about enhancing or engineering states, when it comes to our clients, what am I talking about? Any ideas? And I'd really love to get your responses on Menti, because then everybody else can see those responses much more effectively. So looking forward to your thoughts. And as you do that, I'll just put some background music. Current condition, standards, groups of cities and villages, state of mind, a way of being. Keep those answers coming in. You're doing great. How it describes my feelings, a psychological condition, somewhere stuck in the mind. Stuck, interesting choice of word. Circumstances, a particular condition. Current condition, where I am with myself. Okay. Way of being. State is the state you are at now. Current condition, as Tony Robbins says, it is a state of mind. So it all depends on how you're feeling at that moment. A territory or current condition, mental and emotional condition, a place, whether for a person or a semi-country. How we perceive the world right now. All right. Okay, that is awesome. Lots of beautiful responses. So let me share some perspective on that, and hopefully that's going to be of value to you. The objective of defining state is so that we're all talking about the same thing, because as you know, the words that we choose to communicate to individuals has different meanings. So if I said the word, okay, let's do this for fun. I'm going to say a word, and I would like you to think of the first word that comes to your mind without any judgment or reservation whatsoever, if that's okay. So for example, if I said the word credit card right now, you're either going to have a positive thought or a negative thought, right? You might have a negative meaning connected to the word credit card or a positive meaning. Some of you will think debt, others will think shopping. Some of you will say facilities or ease. Others will think trouble and Satan. I don't know what else. All kinds of weird ideas that come up with one word that has different meanings to different people. In the same context, when we talk about state, it really is a projection of where that person is at that current point in time. And when we say a projection, I'm talking about their emotional, mental, and physical state, okay? And if we want to go deeper, we can even think about their spiritual state. So, and when I say spiritual, I don't mean religion, I mean their sense of belonging to something greater than who we are. So when we talk about coaching in general, a lot of times we've noticed that when we're in the coaching experience and we are focusing on having a fantastic conversation, establishing trust, starting off the coaching experience with the client or the coachee in a really wonderful way. Most people will start off the coaching session by communicating some programmed responses. So they'll say, "Hi, how are you? My name is John. I'm going to be your coach today. I'd like to really know, what would you like to work on?" And what I've noticed is that sometimes we're not aware of or able to discern what's really going on with that individual, the coachee, at the level of their emotions, at the level of their thoughts, and at their level of their body and biochemical state. So I don't know how much you know about neuroscience when it comes to the brain and how the brain functions, but in general, we as human beings tend to shift between different states of being. So a state of being, and also in Arabic, for those who speak Arabic, is hale, okay? So we're in a state, and the state of being, okay, affects very much how open and receptive we are to any experience we're going through. So what do I mean by that? Does anyone have an idea how many drivers we have in our brain that drive our choices and our behaviors? Any idea? When I say driver, I mean like as if someone was getting behind the wheel. So if you were to imagine yourself to be a form of a vehicle and you were driving yourself, you'd have multiple drivers, right? At the level of our brain, the organ itself, there are several drivers that drive our behavior, and we can identify them clearly and relate and work with them and learn how to shift from one to another. Any ideas how many drivers there are? So Larry, you're saying too many to count. Would anyone like to unmute and share a vocal response? You can just raise your hand on Zoom and just go ahead and speak. No problem. My objective is not to confuse you. So don't worry, just take a shot at it. It's not about right and wrong. It's about learning and discovery. Okay.
I mean, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, I think a lot of behavior is conditioned on how you're brought up. Mm-hmm. And so since we all have a completely unique experience,
right?
There's memories of things in the past, what worked, what didn't work, unconscious behavior that's part of our acculturation, and probably a lot of how current events affect us, these kind of things.
Awesome. I'm so glad you highlighted that. And we're going to call behaviors for now, for the sake of simplification, programming. Okay? Or if you like to think about it from the perspective of a phone, let's call it apps. Okay? So let's say this phone represents us, and there's hardware, right? Which is the physical brain in the body. And then inside it, you have an operating system, which is your conscious, subconscious mind. I'm super simplifying. And then in that, you've got apps that are running in the background, which we can call meta programs or mental programs, which, is probably an NLP term. And then you have apps that are running consciously. So the ones we choose to open, like Facebook and Instagram and all other kinds of stuff. So definitely there is a primary role for behavior and programming. But what and where are these behaviors and programming stored? So they're stored in the actual organ of the brain itself. And I'm just trying to draw a very horribly ugly version of the brain. Forgive me for my poor drawing capacity on a computer. But in general, in this brain, we've been able to identify certain areas of the brain that function as drivers. And I see Chiara saying sympathetic and parasympathetic. You're so close. You definitely highlighted one of them. All right. So let's break this into parts. We have 4 drivers, 4 primary drivers. Okay. I'm not going to go very deep into them because it will get too complex. So we don't have time. But for the sake of highlighting them so that you can research them later, the oldest one is what we call the reptilian brain. Okay. And that's really a brain that's focused on our survival. it comes pre-programmed and it can't be updated. So it's, you know how in a computer you have a BIOS, if anybody is computer literate, and in that context, it's what starts up your computer. You really don't update it much. Well, at the level of the brain, the reptilian brain is pretty much set. It's neurologically set through our genetics to function in, you know, 3 primary modes. And these modes are well known. And when we're talking about sympathetic and parasympathetic, and I'm guessing a lot of you are gonna know this now, it's gonna make a lot more sense. We have 3 primary responses, which are either fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, so I either aggress the danger, or I avoid the danger, I run away from it, or I give up or try to make friends with it. Now, there's another area of the brain which also has a very big importance, and usually I like to color it yellow. Let me see if I can just grab a yellow there. There we go. And it's also a very old part of the brain, and it's very close to the reptilian brain, which is the Paleo Limbic Brain. Paleo Limbic. Trying to make this thicker. And this brain is a very close cousin of the reptilian brain. Its primary objective is also our survival, except the reptilian brain deals with a situation moment by moment. So threat equals a threat response, okay? And the paleolimbic is more focused on the dynamics of the group. So what is our relationship in context to the group that we belong in, or the society that we belong into? So if we break that down into 4 different areas, we've got here, let's say, trusting and not trusting. And then we have here on the top, dominant. And at the bottom, submissive. Okay? So really, realistically, this brain is developed from the age of 1 to 10. And it settles pretty concretely at 10 years old. So if you grew up, and a lot of you who've taken CTA's programs have learned some transactional analysis, which is one of my favorite topics. And we've kind of discussed that there are 3 different egos, if you know this. So you have the parent ego, you have the adult ego, and the child ego. And in the parent ego, you have 2 variations. We've got the critical parent. Why did you do this? You shouldn't have done this. Controlling, okay, dominant. And then you have the nurturing parent, which is very supportive. You know, sure, you can do this, you can do. And then we have those extremes of those 2, right? The parent that says, you can do anything you want without giving them construct or structure. And the parent that is controlling at every single level and very, let's say, critical. And then as we go lower into the child ego, we've got 2 types of children, right? We have the adaptive child who's dealt with critical parents and let's say, environments that were not conducive to their growth. And so obviously, just like Dr. Larry was saying, that's going to affect the programs, behaviors, or apps that exist in that individual. And on the other side, we have the free child, which also taken to the extreme has no control whatsoever. These very much affect where a person ends up in those 10 years of their development. So a free child with no control whatsoever, no management whatsoever, can become highly dominant. And if they've had bad experiences with people, then they're going to be very dominant and very untrusting. And extreme dominance goes to narcissism and many other issues with our behavior. And at the bottom scale, extremely submissive can lead to depression and anxiety and so many other things. So a controlling parent, a very critical parent, can affect that individual. On the other side, we have trusting, not trusting. So overly supportive and nurturing parents can make their children too trusting, which ends up being a bit naive. And then not trusting is when they deal with many, many problems and issues and threats and maybe some unfortunate difficulties and challenges in their life, and they can be submissive and not trusting, which makes them both anxious and difficult to belong to society. Ultimately, this program, whatever it is that says where we belong in society, impacts us only deeply when this brain is running or driving our behavior. So what I'm trying to explain right now is we get affected by the impact of these drivers only when they're driving. Okay, so it's true, we can't change much in the Paleo Limbic brain, we can't change much at the level of the reptilian brain, but what we can do is spend less time there. and we become self-aware. Now, this is more in the area of therapy, but I think it's important to understand these things because as coaches, the more we learn, the more we become better at discerning the differences in the client's state. Then we're going to talk about the third brain really quickly, just kind of touch base on that, which is formerly known as the limbic system, okay, or the neo-limbic, the new limbic, which is really the center of the majority of our emotions. This is where our why, why we exist, why we do what we do, a deeper area of our belief systems, it probably resides there. And it, for me personally, and this is my personal opinion, is a neutral brain. So a lot of people say you need to control your emotions. And I kind of think that really the neolimbic is a beautiful brain because it pretty much projects what's going on inside of us. So if my thought process is one that is detrimental to my well-being, then I'm going to project emotions that highlight that. Just like your car dashboard gives you a signal when there's a problem with the engine, check engine now. So whatever thought process is going on, whatever programs and apps are currently running in the background that you're not aware of, are very much going to be projected out into your reality, both at the level of your awareness, it's almost like a screen in your head, and your behaviors externally with others, okay, and the emotions that are supporting these behaviors. So I like to think of the limbic system as a very supportive and powerful screen in which we are able to really better read what's going on with the client without judging, just observing, recognizing what's really not being said, but is being said. So not verbally maybe communicated, but communicated everywhere else. And finally, our favorite brain, and where most times I believe that coaches should be spending their time, taking the client and also being, is our prefrontal cortex, which is the newest brain. It's been around for about, I think, 500,000 years. And the cool thing about the prefrontal cortex is that it's the center of logic. And this is where I find the adult ego in transactional analysis tends to reside. So the adaptive child plays around the Neolimbic and Paleo Limbic and a little bit of the reptilian, whereas the free child spends more time in the prefrontal cortex when they have structure, and when they don't have structure, then they're bouncing all over the place. Why am I talking about this? Because everything that happens when it comes to these four primary drivers is going to affect our biochemical composition. You see, if you're in the prefrontal cortex, you're going to be sending through your body, okay, through the organs that release hormones, a lot of supporting hormones. So you're going to have probably a little bit of dopamine, some oxytocin, okay, if you know what these are. So dopamine allows us to become hyper-focused. It makes us feel good, excited, open to new experiences, open to new ideas, ready for the challenge. So dopamine is what you feel when you're excited about something and when something really interests you, okay? On the other end, you've got hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which are the hormones that are released by the reptilian brain and the Paleo Limbic Brain when you're under duress or threat. And there's so many more, of course, but for the sake of just understanding. So not only are our thoughts affected and our behavior, but also our chemical composition at the level of our body. And that all shows in the person. So to simplify this and to bring it to where it can be effective and applicable at the level of a coaching experience. If we walk into a coaching conversation and we're about to start our coaching session with our client, and we ask our client a question, and that question is a very simple question. Let's just say, like, if I'm talking to Frenda and I say, "Hi, Frenda, how are you?" And she says, "I'm good." And I say, "What would you like to work on today for our session?" And she says, "Well, what just happened there? That was a shift in state, which was created because of a shift in focus." So where a person's focus goes, that's going to interact. Their focus is going to interact with a set of thoughts, beliefs, values, ideas, and it's going to trigger them to invite one of these four drivers to take over. Okay, so let me repeat that. And I hope this is making sense to everybody. If it is, you can give me thumbs up on Zoom. Let me know, feel free, send a message, whatever you like. We're gonna go back to Menti in a few seconds, I promise. But let me repeat that again for you. Coaching questions are very powerful because coaching questions allow us to drive focus. So we're never leading a client or leading the outcome, because then that's not coaching, but we are driving their focus. The power of our questions and the impact of very well thought out and well engineered questions support the coachee in choosing what to focus on. In NLP, we say, what you focus on, you feel. It's a very simplified version. You know, they say it, but they don't really explain it. The reason why what we focus on, we feel, is because when we focus on an empowering thought, then we're going to feel pretty good. Why? Because we're sending ourselves straight to the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex takes over because there's something to learn from, something to experience, something to resolve. But when we have a disempowering thought, then what's going to happen is we're going to go into our Paleo Limbic and Reptilian brain. And as such, the outcome of that is, you know, one of these three responses: fight, flight, or freeze. And the modern version of this in the world today, because you're not going to see people walking around punching everyone every single minute, but what you will see them is displaying aggressive behavior. And that aggressive behavior can be repressed or expressed. You also see them in flight, which is anxiety. So they'll display some form of anxiety, anxiousness, irritation, irritability, not feeling so good about the situation, tense, you know, and then freeze, just giving up or just trying to laugh it off, you know, nervous behavior where they're deeply submissive. None of these three modes support the coachee in a coaching conversation. Because what's happening is this type of brain, this reptilian brain, whose primary purpose is to save us in extreme danger and meant to be activated in seconds only until we're out of danger, once it's running and it becomes chronic because of high stress, the side effect of that is that people become blocked in their thinking. So a lot of times when we work with coaching students and, you know, we're teaching them to become more powerful and effective coaches, there's a journey in which we're trying to highlight as coach trainers that the coachee, in their reality, when they're dealing with a painful experience, they tend to see the world much smaller than it really is. And that's because of the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain will get them to see what's closest to them and stick to it because it is what feels naturally comfortable to them, even if it is their pain. Because they're used to it. It's a known experience. It's measurable. It's defined, right? However, when we invite the coachee to experience a sense of deep safety, Amira, I'm going to answer your question in 1 second, I promise. Thank you for the question. So once they get a sense of deep safety with us, once we let them know that we are a partner, there's no dominance, once we communicate to them that we are here for them and we're working together as partners, in our body language communicates that. And we're also in our prefrontal cortex because the state you're in very much affects the other person's state. Then this wall of limitation and fear starts to crumble. And you have little cracks in it that then allow you to invite the client into a state of deep reflection through powerful questions, and their primary purpose is to break through that wall into a greater space of possibility. And to do that, I can't do it effectively if I'm communicating to the client's reptilian brain and Paleo Limbic brain. Because biologically, I'm dealing with something way stronger than me. As a coach, they're dealing with something way stronger than them, and that is a brain that is designed to resist change, because change 500,000 years ago meant danger. So we used to live in tiny villages or caves, and if we went to new environments, the weather could kill us, animals could kill us, another tribal village could come, kill us, rape, and take the children and everything else that we have. So change isn't something that the brain usually likes to invite. And coaching is all about change. Expanding awareness and inviting change in perspectives, change in understanding, change in let's say, in the type of choices we do, the type of behaviors we do. And so that's gonna be challenging sometimes if that person isn't in the right state. So I'm gonna go a little deeper in how we get there. I'm gonna answer, first give a chance for Amira. I love that you asked me a question. Please feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask me your question. Please drive safe.
Yeah, it is really a comment and not a question. When you touched on the fact that some people laugh instead of, like when they're tense. Mm-hmm. I'm a kinesiologist as well as hypnopsychotherapist. In the Chinese medicine, the cycle of behavior and emotions, the laughter comes after screaming. So what people do sometimes is skip screaming, skip the anger, and that's when you see them laughing. Absolutely. Because they're not into themselves, actually. So just that I wanted to touch on that.
Thank you for highlighting that. And I think it's very important. Then that's just again goes to show that the more sensitive we become to recognizing the subtle differences in a client's behavior and their state, the more empowered we become as coaches in serving the client better, okay? If you don't understand... Okay, there's a little guy, he's not too happy. Luis, the handwriting doesn't help the comprehension. I'm so sorry, brother. I am doing my best. I will try to write more clearly. Thank you for that feedback. If you have any question, feel free to ask me. You can also reach me after the session and ask me anything you like, okay? So I really appreciate that. No problem. All right, so let's talk a little bit about state management and how we apply that. Is this okay for everybody? Is this making sense? Is this adding value? Is this interesting to you guys? You can give me a thumbs up on Zoom just to let me know, whatever you like. If you're on a camera, okay, cool. Just want to know I'm awesome. Okay, cool. So let's step into the next question on Menti. So I think we talked about this. So why is state management important for coaching? If you kind of reflect on that yourself, now that we've put some context to it. So just again to repeat, a state is a situation in which the client or coachee finds themselves in that is very much affecting their emotions, their thought process, and how they see the world around them, their current map of reality, okay, or whatever area of the map they're focused on, if we want to talk about map. And also at the same point in time, their biological, and biochemical current, let's say, state of being. So, and the interesting thing about this is that if the biology changes, it affects the thoughts and the emotions. If the emotions change, they affect the thoughts and the biology. If the thoughts change, they affect the emotions and the biology. So what we're saying is, and why I'm a Neuro Integrative Coach, is because when I work with my clients, my job is to ensure that all their neurology is functioning, is integrated in the process of growing, okay? So I'm focusing on their emotions, I'm focusing on their emotional body, their mental body, their spiritual body, their social body, and their physical body, so that we can ensure that when I'm working with them, all these bodies are being addressed so that they have a whole experience taking place, and the growth is not just at the level of their thoughts. And this is something they do, not something that I do, but I just make sure that everything is fine-tuned according to the objectives they want to reach, okay? It's just to make sure that they're anchored really well. So let's take a look here. Why is state management important? Energy, leverage, empathy. Clients need to know you, to read their map, be in touch with their inner world, I guess. Positive regard for them, connection, empathy. Awesome. Keep those responses coming in. Awesome. Spiritual body means their energy body, because we vibrate. If you want to talk about quantum physics and quantum biology, there's a science to the type of frequency and magnetic power that we give out. And I'm not talking about energy healing per se. That's not what I'm into specifically, even though I've studied a lot of it. I'm more focused on what I can quantify at the level of measurable science, okay? And this is not to say that anything is worse or better. I'm not here to judge anything or to label anything. I'm just simply saying, in my world, what I find myself to be most effective at, and this is something that's really awesome, is that every coach will find their own journey and find the best way that they can serve their clients, their coachees, and will also attract to themselves and bring to interest the type of clients that are looking for their solution. So there's no right and wrong in this context. There is more a matter of finding what's most effective and ensuring that it sticks to the ethical guidelines of ICF, EMCC, BCC, CCE, SHRM, and many other organizations that are out there. And also ensuring that, you know, we are really qualified effectively to do this. I like to always partner with psychotherapists and psychologists and psychoanalysts. And most times I find that that combination between them and me ensures that the client gets the best experience possible, so that there's no red tape that's being stepped on. We want to make sure that we are not stepping into areas of development or therapy that is not designed for coaches, okay? And that's really, really important, okay? But it's completely up to you how you function and work. So I see so many beautiful responses. I'd like to move to the next question with your permission, which is, what ways can we enhance the client state? And so that's the next thing we're going to talk about. But before I do, I'd like to see what's in your thought. So what are ways that you can work on enhancing the client state right from the beginning of the coaching session, so that you can get to an effective coaching agreement? Thank you, Erica. Put some music for you. Wonderful responses. Thank you. Take about 30 more seconds just to give more chances for everyone to complete writing their thoughts. The musician, oh, this is a YouTube video that I downloaded. It has multiple artists. It's called Guitar Cover of Popular Songs of All Time. So I hope that serves you well. Okay, I'm loving the responses, and these are really awesome responses. And let's talk a little bit about those, if you don't mind. So focus on the positive change. I think a lot of you have been able to read these responses, and I'd like to just elaborate on them a little bit. If we're in a coaching conversation, let's say I'm starting my session again with Frenda, who is also a super close friend of mine and has the most beautiful smile in the world all the time on her face, at least for me. And I just start off and I say, Frenda, hey, how you doing today? And she goes, shh. Frenda doesn't do this, by the way, but I'm just giving you this example of this. So instantly off the bat, sometimes junior coaches or people starting off in the industry will not really catch on to that. And it's so important to recognize that, because if I want to start off a productive conversation and my client is feeling irritated, bothered, unsafe, stressed out, exhausted, whatsoever, right? We're not going to really get very, very far. And it's going to be quite challenging to define a very good coaching agreement. And the reason for that is because her brain or his brain right now is focused on survival versus focused on what they desire. They're too focused on the current problem. So they have a short-term vision versus breaking that wall down and seeing and imagining the future. So some of the things that I do is, if that happened, I'll just say, I see, I can see that you're a little bit stressed out. Would you like to talk about that before we start our session? Is there anything on your mind, anything you'd like to express or share? Feel free. I just want you to know that we're human and that's okay. It happens. And so sometimes they're going to be like, no, I'm fine, but I've had a really busy day. I'm so tired. I hardly slept and everything's all right. So then I understand what I'm dealing with. So it's not a very bad situation. It's just that that person, just had a tough day, and that happens. So what I like to do is say, would you mind if we do a little exercise before we start, kind of relax and re-energize you? And most times they'll say, yeah, sure. I'll say, okay, how about you just take a deep breath and relax, sit back in your chair. And would it be okay to do a relaxation exercise? And 90% of the time they'll say, absolutely. And then I'll just guide them through a relaxation technique, which has nothing to do with coaching. Just tell them to focus on the top of their head and progressively relax their muscles. You can search on YouTube for that. It's called progressive relaxation technique. And it just helps them relax their muscles. Or we can do 10 breaths of, 4 in, 8 out, or whatever breathing technique they use. Or I can ask them, how do you usually relax? Or what helps you to relax? Or usually if you wanted to relax, what would you do, right? And so during this experience, you're kind of engaging them in the process of guiding their focus towards relaxation versus focusing on what's stressing them out. And the objective is to take them to their prefrontal cortex so we can start a decent conversation, okay? Most cases, they will relax. Sometimes I just smile. Sometimes I just look at them empathetically and I say, it's okay. Let's take a few moments. And when you feel ready to start, we'll start. And just sometimes that's enough. They'll just go, okay. Okay, ready. And you can see there's a huge energy shift. We don't expect them to go, haha, I'm ready, okay? That's not expected, but if it did happen, that's kind of cool or weird. What we are interested in is to look for when they open up, when they're receptive, when they're ready to challenge themselves and to engage in deep thinking, okay? So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a more positive state, a more happy state, a more open state, a more resourceful state, okay? So you can do this in many, many different ways. Sometimes I start off the conversation and they're really good at controlling their emotions and I don't recognize it in the beginning. So we'll go into the coaching agreement and we're talking for about a minute and I find that everything I say, there's just like a snappy response, snappy response, a snappy response. And it's not directed at me. It's just in general, like, what would you like to work on? I don't know. See how fast the response was? So if you've benchmarked your client, if you have a baseline, in body language, we call this a baseline of how they usually behave, and you see that today they're much faster and snappier than usual, then you know that they're in an unresourceful state. So before you even try to coach them, it might make sense for you to try to discover what's going on. And there's a trick to this. The trick is finding the right balance, because if you tell someone, how are you feeling? Is everything okay? It can almost delve on therapy. And then they'll go, oh my God, I've had such a bad day. And there are certain individuals who can't stop talking because they just want to vent. And your session turns into a venting session. So there's a fine line between inviting someone to express how they feel so that you can shift their focus to a resourceful state, and then letting the rein go too long, where they actually go into a completely different and even more stressed out state because now they're super focused on what's bothering them the most. And why I ask this is because as coaches, we are not problem solvers, at least as far as I know. So what differentiates a coach from someone else who's a consultant or a mentor or an advisor is that our objective is not to solve their problem. And I've noticed that many coaches sometimes start off the coaching process by saying, hey, so what would you like to work on today? Well, you know, I really have a problem with guilt. I'm super shortening the conversation, but let's say within 2 minutes, they came to the conclusion, I have a problem with guilt. And then the next question that the coach in that situation might say is, well, what do you feel guilty about? By doing this, I've actually spent my energy and focus on trying to define the problem further, okay, and sent that client to focus on the pain versus the pleasure. So here it takes a little bit of wisdom, and this is where coaching gets tricky for some people, and it takes them some time to click into that mental mode, to recognize that ultimately human behavior is driven primarily, in most cases, by our avoidance of discomfort, okay, that's a horrible spelling, but anyways, and moving towards, sorry, Luis, forgive me, to comfort. All right? In this case, comfort is pleasure. So this is pain, and this is pleasure. Okay? And most times, we are always moving away from pain and towards pleasure, or away from discomfort towards comfort. And the big problem with this is it all depends on our perception of it. So our perception of discomfort can be very different for two people. Some people consider change to be uncomfortable, while others consider change to be exciting. Some people consider comfort to be sitting at home watching Netflix and being lazy on a couch with chips. Other people think comfort is going to the gym and working out for 2 hours. So it's not for us to decide what is and isn't right for them. It is for us to discover what is and isn't right for them. And so if a person says, my issue is with guilt, and we delve deeper into guilt, that's okay if we're trying to discover a clear picture in their mind. But if we spend too much time focusing on it, then we miss out on the possibility of creating an objective. And what's the objective? For any coaching agreement to take place, at least according to me, okay, what I like to do is I like to place a mirror here. So I'd like you to imagine this to be a mirror. And then I say, all right, now we've defined your pain, what's really bothering you. What would it look like, just for fun, if you were to mirror that? So this is where you are. Where would you like to be? This is what you're feeling right now. What would you desire to feel? This is who you are right now, or what you're experiencing right now, according to you. What would a better version or future version of you look like? Or who in your life represents the kind of feeling that you would like to have? And they say, well, I want to be someone who doesn't feel guilt. I want to be free to behave the way I want ethically. Okay. How does one behave ethically? So where is the focus now? Is the focus here or here? And to make sure that that focus is working properly, if they are in a unreceptive state, so in their reptilian brain, remember, they're blocked. So if they're talking about their pain, all they see, so if I'm the coachee right now, let's take the coachee's eye, and I'm going to draw his eyes or her eyes. Okay, these are two eyes. And what they see in front of them is a screen. And on that screen, which is pretty close, they're seeing pictures and images of everything that is painful, which is, in this case, whoops, sorry. Let's try to get this. Guilt. So what we want to do is we want to bring a hammer, give it to the coachee and say, take the hammer and this is, we use it through a question, a powerful question, and the coachee comes by thinking about the screen, breaks the screen, and now he sees the next screen, or she sees the next screen, which is far further away and much larger, like a cinema. And on that screen is a different movie playing, and this movie is a positive movie of possibilities and opportunities. And to do that, it's important to recognize that the brain that we are being driven by very much affects what we see and how much space we have to get there, because we need space to explore options. I hope this is making sense. Am I confusing things, or am I explaining clearly enough? Feel free to give me feedback. All right. So I'd like to take some questions now, if you don't mind. And that way we can all benefit from them. What would you like to ask me? Or not. Don't be shy. Remember, this is a safe space. We're here to learn.
Hello, can you
Hi.
hear me, sir?
Yes, I can, Muhammad. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. How are
John,
you?
John, please, not sir, just John. I'm
Sir,
good.
let me ask, can I ask a question, sir?
You can ask anything you like. Please proceed.
Okay. Sir, actually, during the conversation with the client while coaching someone, somehow while listening the problems of clients or issues, I became too much emotional.
Mm.
I couldn't be able to you can say control myself or be in my senses,
Mm.
somewhat like that. So this affects the way of my coaching.
Okay.
So how to overcome it?
How would you like to be, Muhammad? If you had an optimal situation, if you could see the best version of you as a coach functioning at optimal performance, what does that look like to you?
I think I should feel as I feel now, but in a different way. I should relate with his or her problem, but uh, first hold myself, change a perspective.
How could you go about doing that?
While I can say,
Take your time. There's no rush.
sorry for taking much time.
Don't worry. That's exactly why I said take your time. How about we do this? Would you like to take a few moments to kind of reflect on it and then share the responses with me in a bit, so you don't feel under pressure because of everybody that's here?
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Good.
I think I should not involve in the scenario in this way that I cannot control myself. I should just grab the information first and make the perspective.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, I understand you're saying you should grab the information first and then hear their perspective. I've noticed that you use the word should a lot. And should tends to be somewhat of a judgment, right? So should, shouldn't. What could you do that would be enjoyable for you? Because it seems that you're very empathetic, and that's a beautiful trait. If you have that strong ability to feel others, that's a fantastic superpower. And if that superpower is placed in the right context, I think you would be serving people really, really incredibly. So would it be okay if I invited you to reflect on, kind of think about the different ways and methods that you could use to be effective with your clients and empathetic while not really having their emotions transfer over to you or deeply living their pain or experiences. Would that be an exercise that you could do or would like to do?
Yeah, actually, I'm so much expressive.
Okay.
I cannot be able to control my emotions of happiness or sadness. All emotions, not only good or bad, both kind of emotions.
Okay. So I've noticed that you've said also that you cannot control those emotions. Is that true?
Yeah.
Are you absolutely certain that it's
Uh,
absolutely not possible?
actually,
You absolutely cannot?
I have started practicing, and somehow I have succeeded in doing that. But
Hmm.
at the corner of my mind, I feel that I am uh, I'll be less empathetic while doing this.
Hmm. And is being very empathetic important to you?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. How does it serve you and serve your coachee?
Being empathetic is the key to relate with your with the other person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Without being empathetic, how can one able to be relate or concern with someone else
Okay.
deeply with heart?
Is there a certain measurement to that empathy? Like, for example, if it was from 0 to 10, 10 being extremely empathetic and 0 being not empathetic at all, where would you like to be in your life in general? Not as a coach, but in your life in general. What number or what score would you like to be at?
Um, I wanna empathetic feeling others up to as much as I can.
So give it a number if that's okay with you, if you don't mind, so we can understand too. Would that be okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
so from 0 to
it
10,
would, uh, 10.
10. So you would
Yeah,
like to be at 10 in your life. Is that okay? Is that correct?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Where do you think you need to be as a coach in order to be an effective coach?
Mm, according to my knowledge, my perspective, I
Mm-hmm.
think I should be at 10, but with some other skills or measures that that assist being empathetic.
Okay. Just to make sure I understand you correctly, is it okay for me to repeat back what you said?
Uh, I'm saying
Yeah.
being empathetic is good, but with some other skills or practices,
Okay.
some other measures. Yeah,
So empathetic plus other stuff, right? Other
yeah, yeah,
skills. Cool. And when they come together, will those
yeah,
other skills balance out the empathy?
yeah, yeah. That will be best.
Okay, wonderful. Where could you get those other skills and who can help you with that?
By practicing more
Okay,
with the
great.
clients, by asking questions from tutors like you, sir, what I'm doing right now.
Okay, awesome. Anything else you'd like to add to the list?
No, sir. Thank you so much.
Is that okay for you? You can always
Yeah.
ask us any questions in these sessions or outside. We're always here to serve, okay?
Okay, sir.
God
Thanks a
bless your
lot.
heart and your empathy. That's really beautiful.
Okay.
Best of luck.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for asking.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, guys, thank you for giving Hamid an opportunity to explore some of his thoughts. Who else would like to ask a question?
John, you had another question in the chat
Yep.
from Vinzo, who says how to use this framework to avoid feelings transference with the coachee situation.
Venzo, it's good to talk to you, buddy. We haven't been able to talk. Hello. Find ourselves
hello.
here.
How are you?
Good, good, good.
It's okay. It's okay. I know we get busy. Yes. So I would like to ask you, John, because you were speaking 5 minutes ago about the fine line between venting out and knowing the difference between therapy, coaching, advice, mentors. I know that mentoring is a part of coaching, but when do you know that it's not your part to give some advice, whether it's a therapy, you know, like you're a master coach, you have that experience. But for me as a junior coach, after I get my certificate, if one person comes to me, when would I know it's not my job to give questions? And maybe you having that experience, did you ever encounter a person that didn't need coaching and you told them, with all my respect, I think you need therapy? Has it ever happened to you, or did you manage to stay with that coachee?
Okay, so it seems there's a couple of questions there. I'll try to break it down into what I understood, and then please correct me, okay? And it helped me to understand you better. So
all right,
primarily, you're asking the last question got stuck in my mind first, which was if I've ever been in a situation where I referred out a client to therapy versus coaching them because I felt that they would do better with therapy or they needed therapy. Is
exactly, exactly.
Okay. Let's tackle that first. I would never tell a client that you need therapy. That's an assumption that I am not qualified to make. But if in this course that you take with us at CTA, there are very clear, let's say, guidelines for when to refer a client out. And the process of referring out a client comes back to your discernment, wisdom, and understanding of the client's personality and preference. So if I ask the client, how would you like to receive feedback? And they said, just direct straight to the point. And they came to me and say, John, just tell me, will coaching help me? And I'll say, what is it that you'd like to accomplish and achieve? So once we understand what they're working with and what challenges exist, through time and practice and knowledge, of course, and becoming a certified coach, that does give you, to an extent, the capacity to be able to pretty much get a sense of if coaching is going to be best for that individual or not. If I find that they have any type of behavior that is in the realm of negative psychology, that means requires therapy, okay, or signals an unhealthy mental state of mind or being caused by pain, trauma, anything like that, if they're depressive in any way, or I sense a high level of anxiety, anything that requires us to refer them out, then I would simply say coaching could be a great tool for you. May I recommend that you touch base with a therapist just to check first whether therapy or coaching is the best approach for you. So it's never about, I really would like to invite you all to avoid setting, let's say, walls and boxes for your clients, okay? Because the moment we do that is the moment that we make the assumption that we know better, and then we've stepped out of the coaching role and into a different role, which is somewhat dominant and also not so conducive for trust for me, as far as I'm concerned, okay? So highly recommend in that case that you just say, listen, I'll be very honest with you. I might not be the best coach for you, or coaching might not be the most effective tool for you at this point in time. May I recommend that you touch base with a therapist first to resolve these areas and just make sure how you feel about them. And if the therapist says that coaching is good for you, at the same point in time, then we can work in parallel. That's no problem, because then I have the therapist's approval and we're working in partnership, and that's okay. I can work on positive psychology as a coach. She or he can work on negative psychology, and we're actually both moving the client forward to the objective that they want to get to, okay? But it takes a lot of understanding, responsibility, and wisdom. And I think it's very, very important that we really recognize our passion to coach others does not give us the right to mess around with their understanding of reality, especially when we are in a position of great influence. So if there's a tremendous amount of trust, if they really like us, if they watched us on social media, some of you are prominent on social media, so you already have that impact on others. It's a big responsibility as a coach. So highly recommend that you are very aware of that and cautious. Sometimes it's good to check with your mentor. So if you have a coach mentor, many of us do. I mean, Fran and I have been coaching forever, and we still have coach mentors, and we have therapists that we work with on a personal level. And it's always good to take a second thought. So if you're not sure, say, let me get back to you on that. And the client will respect your honesty and integrity. and just go out and say, listen, this is what's going on. I'm kind of stuck here and I'm not sure. What are your thoughts? Without divulging the client's information, but you can share with your coach mentor what's going on. And that way you're two minds thinking versus one. And it gives you a much clearer perspective to serve them best.
Thank you so much, John. It's very clear now.
Okay. Thank you. What else do you have as questions? I noticed there was a question in the chat. There's a question about explaining states to your clients. I think it very much depends on my client. Some clients really like a lot of explanation and details. So I call these clients emos. And these are individuals who want to know every single detail. So if you imagine yourself going to a doctor's office and you're getting scanned by the doctor, tested and all that kind of stuff, sometimes if you're the type of patient that tells the doctor, okay, what should I do? Says, oh, just take these pills, you'll be fine. And you just walk out of the doctor's office, you don't ask a question, you're completely fine. So that's the type of client that doesn't really need a lot of explanation. You can just interact with them and they're physicals, they're quick to interact. Emos, on the other hand, are people who need to know everything, right? So if you talk about the 6 human needs, then they're in needs of certainty and assurance. If you talk about SCARF as a model, they're looking for autonomy and certainty, right? So that they ensure they know what's going on. And in that case, I would explain. I would sit down with the client and say, would you like to know more? And then I would explain. But one of the things about explaining is it's a two-edged sword. The more information you give a client, the more they tend to analyze what they're doing in the coaching session, which is besides the point. Especially when I'm coaching coaches, right? So if I have a friend of mine or someone who's a coach and they come to me for coaching, or they're therapists and they come to me for coaching, the first thing I do when we start off the session, and I notice through their eye patterns and their thought processes that they're also analyzing themselves. So it's sort of like there's me, there's them, and then there's another version of them doing the coaching with me in partnership and therapy. And I say, turn that person off. You came to me for a reason. Trust me in the process and let me work with you as a coach. I want you to let go. In this circumstance, you can turn off and give yourself the opportunity to just be, so that we can go deep. Because the better the state, the deeper you can go with the client, the deeper they can go into discovering, the deeper in the water they can go to finding those corals underneath that have the really beautiful fish and colors that they're looking for. I hope that explains it. I'm going to take a look.
All right, John, looks like you have one last question.
All right.
Here. And it is from Luis.
Mm-hmm.
I love this one. Is the coaching useful only for intelligent people? May a non-intelligent person be coachable? Considering the good understanding of verbal communication is a cornerstone of any coaching process. Can't wait to hear your answer for that one.
Ciao, Luis. You're always making it challenging for me, brother. I'm just teasing. All right. Well, the main challenge for me here is to define what intelligence actually means. So are you familiar, Luis, with the animal called the chameleon? It's a lizard that changes color according to its environment, or the octopus. It has 8 legs, it's underwater, and it can camouflage itself. Yes? Okay, I'm guessing, Luis, where are you from? You might have to unmute if you don't mind. Apologies. You're still muted. Hold on. I'm so sorry, brother. You're still muted. I can't hear you. If you go to the Zoom at the bottom, you can click on the microphone to unmute.
Well,
there you go.
I'm Cuban.
Cuban, okay.
Yeah, but I live in Spain for 20 years ago.
Wow, where in Spain?
I'm a medicine doctor, okay?
You're a?
I'm a medicine doctor.
Medicine doctor. Yeah. Thank you so much. But Luis, you should understand my handwriting because most doctors have like scribbly handwriting. Okay, thank you so much for the question. I think, Luis, it's our job as coaches to become like chameleons or octopuses. So it's not about the level of intelligence. It's about more understanding that person's background and reality and us mirroring them in the experience. Now, if that isn't something you're comfortable with, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking in general, in that case, then that isn't a client that you should be coaching. So many times, and this goes back to Venzo's second question, which is, have there been clients that I have not coached? Yes, definitely. Sometimes I find, I can tell you personally right now, if my client comes in and my client is a very slow thinker, has nothing to do with intelligence. Their rhythm is very slow. I can't coach them. They're just not for me. I would refer them out to someone completely different, okay? A coach that is much more calm. I'm the kind of coach that likes to light fire and throw you in the fire and just get things moving fast. That's my preference. But can I adapt? Yes. Do I have versatility between being very slow and very fast? Yes. But there's also a limit to that. So if I'm working with someone, it's a long-term coaching process where we're going to do more than one session, and it requires me to really slow down or to really change the way I communicate or to really, and if I find that there's a language barrier or a cultural barrier that I still am not capable of getting through, then I don't coach that person. But I can befriend them and I'll let them know, I'm going to work with you to find the right coach for you. And I refer them out to 6 or 7 coaches and I let them choose. So I say, here's a few numbers of people that I would recommend, try them out, have a conversation, see who fits best for you. And usually they'll send me a message later and say, thank you so much. That was a great referral. And I'm going to refer you these 3 people because you're a fantastic coach. So, and that's the way you also increase your coaching business and your referrals, because doing what's best for your coachee is way more important than just picking up the business. Thank you, Luis. That's a fantastic question. I don't know if I answered it for you as well. That's the best of my abilities. Okay.
Well, John, this has been absolutely wonderful. And no matter how many times I hear this, I learn something, I write notes, and awesome. I'm just so very, very happy that we were able to have this type of session. If you don't mind, could you place in the chat very quickly how, if anyone wants to get in contact with you or learn more from you, how they would be able to do that? And absolutely. While John is doing that, we will invite you all to join us next week for the community of practice. I think it's at the same time next week. Is it, Soham?
Next week, same time? Yes, it's same time.
Same time next week. So we look forward to you all joining us. And you know that you get the 1 CCE unit for joining today. And we're very, very happy for that as well. So John has put his information there in the chat. And I know if you have any questions or anything you want to know from him, he is a wealth of information and always very, very open.
Thank you.
So I just want to take this moment. Yes, thank you, John. I just want to take this moment to thank you all for taking this time out of your day to join us for CTA's Community of Practice. If you want or need any more information about Coach Transformation Academy, please by all means send the contact. Soham has put it in the chat earlier. And we just look forward to hearing from all of you and seeing you all next week. So have a great rest of your day. And thank you again for joining us. And thank you so much, John.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Frenda. Thank you, everyone. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I just send you my WhatsApp. Of course, we are super happy to have you at CTA. Frenda, thank you. Soham, thank you for inviting me to do this. God bless you all. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.